Salute to everyone who is watching today. Welcome back to Dominant. So, as I've promised in the Love and Sex series, I said that this time we're going to do something different because I think this is a problem that we really need to address these days, and that is how to prevent GBV. And this is a step by step opinion of mine that I have compiled on how we can um, address this GBV. Just in case you don't know what GBV is gender based violence, which is generally domestic violence in other countries. But in South Africa, they say it's gender based violence because of the fact that most women are the victims of it. So I want you to see if we had a chance to actually prevent this, how can we do it? So now I want to show you the objectives of what we're going to talk about. Firstly, we're going to see what artificial intelligence says about the causes of gender-based violence, statistics, the psychology of the perpetrators, because usually they look at the victims, but now we want to see what the people who actually cause this gender-based violence, what is it in their minds? The controversy of the solutions that are already existing, meaning that the solutions that we have right now, they are not working because it is increasing drastically. So we have to see what are they already, and that what does the Bible say about the topic of gender-based violence, and that we have to talk about the step by step, and finally the step by step on how to prevent the gender-based violence. So now let's see what artificial intelligence says. I opted for Copilot on what the causes are. Let's see. So gender-based violence is caused by a mix of cultural, social, economic, and political factors, all rooted in unequal power relations and harmful stereotypes. So the first one, it says patriarchal norms and stereotypes. Society that views men as dominant and women as submissive often justify violence as a way to control women. And this one you see by the way that people project men leadership. That's why these days when they see dominance, they see just toxic masculinity. And unfortunately, as I've addressed in most of my videos, I've addressed that dominance is not control, it's leading. But unfortunately, the way that men have been taught to lead in these ages and these days, they end up becoming control freaks. And unfortunately, the patriarchy is the system that works. But unfortunately, because of the mixture of a lot of things inside the patriarchy, it has turned out to be non-beneficial. Normalization of violence, yes. In some, especially in rural areas in South Africa, rural areas in townships, um, violence is seen as a norm where if someone does wrong, and I'm not talking about corrective, the rod. I'm talking about like genuine violence where um, some women are at the point where they don't even they even see you as weak when you don't hit them. That's how much it's been normalized. And silence and stigma. Survivors may be discouraged from speaking out due to shame, and unfortunately, that is true. So let's continue with those causes. Weak law enforcement, inadequate protection, poor investigation, and yes, these days they don't, even the people who don't actually participate in this thing, they don't investigate enough. Already, if someone says that they are violated, they automatically assume that that is true, and they end up finding out that it's not true. And the person who claims to be the victim ends up not receiving any punishment if found that they lied. And limited access to justice. Um, Unfortunately, that's the case where um, Usually areas that are normal have normalized violence, they don't have enough resources that will help them get the protection that they need. What does this mean? uh, it goes hand in hand with weak law enforcement, poverty and unemployment. Unfortunately, people who are unemployed, especially the men, who get frustrated and they don't have an ideas on how to make it in life, and even women, they end up becoming violent in taking out their frustration on anyone who is around them. Unequal, when women have less access to education, jobs, yes. And unfortunately, it's not only women, it's men. When anyone who does not, who has limited access to education in any form, they end up becoming vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. That's why usually it's rural area people who suffer more in township. But in terms of suburban, they suffer a different type of violence. And that is why you might not see it. So political structural causes reflects a broader power imbalance in society that includes discrimination, politics. Yes, unfortunately, there's not much I can say about it. Conflict and instability, war, displacement, political unrest. Yes, where people who have more power, they would exploit the people with less power, particularly in cohesion. We're going to talk about it in a few minutes. Uh, this one we already spoke about. So now let's see the statistics. So here are some of the statistics. They say that for the 2,569 rape cases and 7,418 assaulted were reported in 1 year. Wow. So 5,578 women were murdered and 7,239 survived attempted murder in the same period. Unfortunately, this is to the point that they actually categorized all women killings as gender-based violence, and that is not what gender-based violence is. Studies show that over half of South African women reported experiencing at some point in their life. It is estimated up to 95 for unreported, and that is something that I hate because of the fact that when people are actually genuinely get raped and other people are not, who just regret it, they end up making it look like the ones who actually got raped for real are lying. So let's go. More statistics. Yeah, this is a repeat. Like I said, the reason why I say that is because they are to the point that if a random crime happens and a woman gets killed, they end up making it look like it's gender-based violence. And usually, like I say, gender-based violence is when it's within a domestic milieu where it's a relationship between a man and a woman and their children, or a man and a man in these days, and whatever. Though that is called domestic violence. But if someone gets raped randomly in the streets, that is not gender-based violence. And unfortunately, they end up categorizing it as that and making it a higher number than what it is, unfortunately. And that's what the purple gaming is doing. So yeah, let me leave that one. The psychology behind the perpetrators, the people who actually cause this gender-based violence. Usually it's men trying to take back their power. So what these men do is that they don't know what to do to become men. And because of the fact that women these days don't usually submit the way that they're supposed to, some men, what they do is that they would resort to abuse. They would force their power on these women. And unfortunately, in their terms of trying to get back that power, they end up becoming abusive. They end up becoming destructive. And that is what they would usually do. The second one is coercion. Coercion is when you are in a scenario where let's say you go to someone's house and you are going to spend the night there, and whilst you are starting to become intimate, you say that I don't feel comfortable, please take me home. And the person is like, no, I'm not want to take you home. Sleep with me first, then I'll take you home. That is actually coercion and is categorized as rape also. And some people end up finding themselves in such situations where they go out to the club, they end up meeting someone there, they go to their house, and it's far from their home, and they regret it, and the person is like, nah, you ain't going nowhere until you sleep with me, and they sleep with them because of the fact that they didn't have a choice. That is actually coercion. It's actually, and drug abuse. This one is a common one where people are alcoholics and they abuse each other and they are motivated by drugs because drugs are overstimulating them, and they end up thinking that it's okay to force their will onto someone else. Childhood trauma, which it can be when someone has anger issues because of the fact that they saw the violence in front of them, or they saw they get raped themselves, and they end up seeing it as a normal thing, where their parents were abusing each other in front of them, or they experienced abuse themselves. So they end up becoming abusers when they grow up. Women punishing men for being weak. This is a common one, and I don't think it's one that people talk about, where women abuse men because of the fact that they project as weak. Women, they can suffer childhood trauma, all of these ones that are there also, but even when they are weak, they can punish you. Usually women punish, they abuse men mentally more when they tell them on how much that guy is making money and he's useless. That is mental abuse. When they tell them that, oh, he's not living up to the sex standards, that is mental abuse. When they experience inadequate parenting, negligence, just like I said, when they experience trauma, when they are not given enough attention, or when they are given unrealistic expectations, they end up becoming abusers. Fatherless, this one is a very common one in South Africa. That is why this thing is such a common thing in South Africa, because of the fact that it's one or two things. We have absent fathers or inadequate fathering that would cause children to end up becoming what they become, which is abusers. And unemployment, as I've said before, is that when people have enough time to think about nonsense, and they take out their frustrations onto others. And unemployment is such a big thing in South Africa, unfortunately. And weak law enforcement. We law enforcement in the sense that it's usually in the side of men where they are not given enough privilege. Because right now, when they are giving more rights to children and women, there's no balance there, where if a woman if a woman abuses a man, they are not given the same punishment as if a man is abusing a woman. And that is one of the things that show that South Africa is experiencing weak law enforcement. So let us continue. The controversial solutions that already exist. The perpetrators are always men, and the victims are always women and children. And this is something that we like to overlook. That if any time you hear gender-based violence, you know that the victim is a woman and the perpetrator is a man. And funny enough, if you don't know, homosexual relationships are the ones that actually experience the most domestic violence other than heterosexual relationships, just in case you don't know. Women awareness and no men's awareness. And I've been saying this all along. When women do these awareness campaigns, what they do is that they do these awareness campaigns by degrading men. And unfortunately, men's awarenesses, they don't address the right thing. Even I've attended a lot of men's conferences where I've seen where they always talk about women. They talk about women and children. They don't talk about the inner man, where the man needs to be addressed, where he is not blamed, but told that he needs God's presence and he needs his purpose and all of that. They don't talk about that. They talk about the fact that you just need to provide, you just need to do all of this, and you don't get any appreciation. Unfortunately, these are the situations that are here. Too much power given to women in law enforcement, as I've said, that right now there are a lot of rights that accommodate women, but they don't accommodate men. These days, we are to the point that if you look at a woman funny, she can actually get you arrested. And a woman can just smack you in the bum and they don't see it as anything, unfortunately. Not taken seriously when men are the victims. There was one day, I think it was in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, 2021, when I went to the police station. There was a guy who got raped by two women. And when he reported the crime, I overheard it because I was certifying some things and they were laughing at him. And the guy was devastated. That guy was crying hysterically. You see? Because he's a guy, he's not taken seriously. Creating new terms to fit ideologies, just like I said, or let me say this, the purple gang, when they are creating all sorts of things, like I said, all sorts of statistics that say that over 50% of women are being abused. As I've said, that we don't look at the factors, we just look at the stats that say that over 50, what are the factors that are contributing there? And we are at to the point that the same victims that say that those people are perpetrators, they will go back to those same perpetrators if those perpetrators had money. I've seen it. You don't need to, you can say whatever, but I've seen it so many times. So now, let's see what the Bible says. I actually want to go to this link so that we can actually see what God says in his word about domestic violence. Because it says, you remember in this love and sex series, we always refer to the Bible. Yeah, where is let me do this real quick. Yeah. Let's just give it a few seconds. No. What is this thing doing? Okay. What does the Bible say about domestic abuse? So let's see. Psalm 34, verse stanza 8, where it says that the Bible consistently identifies abuse with misuse of power and condemns abuse of all kinds as unjust. Sometimes abusers use the Bible's teachings on topics such as marriage, submission, love, and forgiveness to persuade victims of abuse to tolerate abuse and remaining. Yes, that's absolutely true, where people would manipulate people by using the word submissive to abuse these women. Violence ended as a result of sin. When you remember when Cain murdered Abel in Genesis chapter 4. And this includes violence against women, such as rape, Genesis chapter 34, of the woman of Bethlehem, Judges chapter 19 and verse chapter 20, and Tamar, 2 Samuel chapter 13, the violence against Naphtali's daughter, which is Judges chapter 11, verse 29 to 40. The Bible uses different words for violence. The Hebrew word hamas means violence or wrongdoing. Is used 60 times in the Bible and usually referring to physical violence. Obviously, it does not talk about domestic violence, but the Bible does refer to violence in all sorts of ways, but also general wickedness, sin, injustice, and verbal violence. The words gazal and asad mean to rob or oppress and are used to refer to violence that may be physical, verbal, or immoral. Other words have the meaning of attack, destroy, and annihilate. The Hebrew verb ana means to rape, to violate sexually, and can also mean to oppress or weaken. Other words mean to oppress, to crush. As in our own time, a variety of words are used, and context determines meaning. The behaviors we associate today, you see, this is what the Bible says. Violence is condemned as sin in the Bible. Enough said. So, abuse of any way, any form, according to the Bible, is sinful. So, you should not do it. It can lead you to hell if you are a perpetrator. So now let's look at the step-by-step prevention methods that I have come up with. So identifying the causes, because the statistics are increasing rapidly, we have to see what the causes of this gender-based violence are, meaning that we have to look at what motivates the people to do what they're doing. Obviously, we have to arrest them. We have to punish them, no doubt about that. But we need to look at the psychology of these people also. Secondly, before concluding, make sure the facts are fulfilled, meaning that before you say that someone is abusing a person, you have to say that you have concluded and the facts are there. Because sometimes I've done a video already that speaks about the situation that was done in Skin somewhere. Mtswaki was saying that Toby abused her sexually, only to find out that Mtswaki just regretted the fact that she slept with a guy after they found out that she actually did not sleep at home. So make sure that it is a genuine thing. There was evidence of DNA. There was there was all sorts of violent marks. There are signs from the victim and the perpetrator to show that this is violence in any way. Otherwise, you'll end up arresting someone and you'll find out that the victim was just trying to ruin that person's life. Secondly, men and women need to take into account the role they play. Just like I said, you have to realize that there are people who provoke people to be abusive. There are men and women out there. When they are not abused, they feel like you don't love them. And you have to identify that. I've dated such a person. Don't ask me what happened. More fatherhood qualities are needed. Just like I said, more awareness about fatherhood. People need to learn about being fathers before they actually become fathers. They actually impregnate people. And like I said, ladies, if you are not sure that she will be a good partner, you're not supposed to sleep with them. Males should be developed at a young age by masculine men rather than always being reading negative messages about them. You doing this purple thing, you talking about the statistics, and you blaming men and telling them that all of them should die. You are creating more monsters than you realize. You are creating more abusers than you realize when you always tell them these negative thoughts. So they need to be reinforced on positive things, that they are valuable. This pressure of always seeing men as material, as cash cows that you can use to become your lifestyle, whatever's your lifestyle funders, you are actually killing them, and you are actually promoting them to become more abusive, and you don't realize that. Funding the wrong programs increases the problem. This is one of the things that I always said on my TikTok channel. Women programs don't work, especially when it comes to this gender-based violence. They don't work. Enough said. Males need God for society to move forward. If you actually understand that the society needs God, society's foundation is all about God, you'll realize that it will never function properly as long as you don't address, especially the fourth one and the fifth one. And what can be done? Part 2 is coming. So I want to give you my concluding thoughts that this abuse thing can be prevented. We just need to know how to prevent it properly. So give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and comment below. Check out in the description, Can Homosexuality Be Cured? So if you like this video and you want me to tell you about what can be done practically, like a step-by-step, comment in there below and say what can be done. Always remember, /check SYS soldiers salute you out.